Welcome to the Deployed Podcast, where strategy, ideas, and capital come to life.
Welcome back for another episode of Deploy. I have a great guest here that I'm excited for you guys to meet. Before I get into that, for those who don't know me, I'm Michael Kearse, a real estate investor and co-founder of Ameripath USA. Over the last several years, I've helped tons of investors deploy millions into affordable real estate that creates consistent, secure returns while helping families across the county achieve home ownership. I created Deploy because I realized everyone has capital, right? Money, knowledge, relationships, but few deploy it intentionally. This show is about the art and science of deployment and how high performers turn potential into power. My guest today is Doug, someone who's not only has a distinguished career in the Air Force, but is also the CEO and founder of Cyber Kata. Welcome, Doug. And so my first question for you, sir, is how do you usually introduce what you do to people who don't know your world?
So I kind of relate to them on the level of where they're coming from and the things that they can associate it with. So my world is cybersecurity. I've been doing cybersecurity for about 15, 17 years, both offensive and defensive cybersecurity. So how I relate to people that may not know anything what those words mean would be you see the threats that are happening in the world. Now imagine somebody can take over your whole house or take over a whole country just from a laptop. And that's the threat. That's when people are like, oh my God, can that happen? And it's like, yes, it has happened. In 2008, Estonia, the whole country was pretty much taken over by Russia, by a Russian hacker group. And so since the whole country almost was crippled, they started planning afterwards and they were like, hey, we need to come up with a simulated exercise to prepare for a possibility of a country devoting all of its resources and all of its efforts to a full large-scale cyber attack.
Interesting. So when you talk about that, it makes me think of a Netflix movie that I've seen with, I think you know what I'm talking about. Was it called Look Up in the Air or Forget Tomorrow?
Don't Look Up?
Don't Look Up. Was it Don't Look Up? When they showed the ship floating across the water and they were in the sand and they were just watching the ship just float. And then they were like, oh my God, it's coming this way. And then they got up and ran. They were in an Airbnb.
No, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
that one, I
always think
forgot
of
the
looking
name
up
of
too.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
No, yeah, that movie is accurate because I know people that can hack Tetris. Everybody
Yeah.
uses Bluetooth for their whole house
Yeah.
even. There's so many
Right.
people that have like Google Homes or Apple Home networks and, everything is being controlled by this Alexa device or this Apple device. So, you can control lighting, your thermostat, all of that stuff. You can integrate your whole entire house into a computer system off of Bluetooth. Bluetooth is one of the most unsecured signals that can be compromised. Even to this day, yes, they've gotten a little bit better with it, but it's still not as strong as when you hear somebody saying like a SHA 256-bit encryption or a 512-bit encryption. Basically, that's the secure hash algorithm, the security that is going into encryption bits and types. Bluetooth device is not going to be as strong as that or as encrypted as that is. So I can go ahead and hack somebody's Bluetooth device and it's allowing me integration into the whole entire house, you just gave me access to your whole entire house.
Just remember the movie. It was
Off of
called
a
Leave the
phone.
World Behind.
Yep.
The movie was
That
called
one.
Leave the World
Good
Behind.
movie.
Yeah. And he broke down how they hacked the country. They were using Teslas to keep them all. And it was insane. Okay. So talking about your journey now, right? I want to go back for a second before all the wins, before you were this successful version of yourself. What were the early struggles that you would say shaped how you operate today?
I would probably say early struggles, probably not knowing where to go and not knowing the resources that I could reach out to. You know, I had a career in the military, in the Air Force. I got out of that and it was a transition going into civilian sector. And then also, how do I talk to people and break things down simply without being super technical and just losing their focus? And so for me, I really had to ground myself and understand, okay, well, I need to break something complicated and complex down into simple terms. And then also understand, like, do I truly understand what that means? What are the different components that go into it? Uh, Let me slow things down a little bit and try to start teaching people. And so for me, I started mentoring and teaching veterans how I got into cybersecurity and how to start from, like, no IT experience. And that kind of helped me rehearse, like, oh, okay, these are the basics. These are things that I remember well. And then this is helping me to kind of break things down in pieces and steps and stages.
What was your first big break or deal?
Probably working with NATO. So I'm working with NATO right now, doing simulations like cyber threat exercises, and they have one every year. And I'm one of 200 people in the world that's selected to be on the U.S. team.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Now, how did that type of success come your way? Was it something strategic that you did? Was it a goal of yours? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so it was both. It was strategic. I heard about this exercise through some of my military colleagues and partners, and then I also they reached out to me about some of the things I was doing at the time as far as cybersecurity projects and the things in the field. And then they asked me, do you want to be on the white team? You want to help create the scenario for this exercise? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And so I went over, like, this is how I'd create the scenario. This is how I'd create the scenario attack, all of these injects, everything. And I did such a good job. They're like, hey, do you also want to be on the tactical blue team, the defensive cybersecurity team as well? And I said, yes.
That's
Yeah, I've been
awesome.
with
That's awesome.
them probably for about 3 years, going on 4.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Was there ever like a defining failure or turning point that kind of, you know, spurred you on this road that you can recall?
As far as cybersecurity, I mean, I always had a love of IT and cybersecurity and hacking ever since I was in high school. But as far as NATO, it was something that after I got in the military, I was like, oh, is something like, what is a big organization that I would love to, like, work for? What is a goal I can set? It might be, something that I may never achieve or be able to work with, but I need to set that goal, that bar, so it's something I can strive for. Even though it may be far-fetched, maybe it is too far out there and it's overreaching, I still want to set that goal and I still want to try to achieve it. Yeah, for me, it was okay, I want to work for NATO. I want to go beyond, like, the US, the NSA, stuff like that. I want to go to probably the highest entity for cybersecurity that there is currently. And then for cybersecurity, I mean, I've gotten 10 certifications already, and I'm 36 years old, and I'm still learning, still trying to push myself. I have 12 years of defensive cybersecurity and about 4 years of red teaming or offensive cybersecurity, so like hacking and stuff like that. But I'm still trying to grow. I'm still trying to understand both sides of the coin really well as I could ingest, as well as I can push myself.
I love that. I love that. So what's the motivation? Why are you so ambitious in that aspect and in that industry?
I want to keep pushing myself. It's more of like a challenge. I want to try to push myself as much as I can go. And I feel like when you stop learning, you stop having that motivation. You stop setting that goal. And then, nobody is ever at that level where they can stop growing. They can stop learning new things and pushing themselves more in their career. Like I think for me, it's important to always strive for something because it gives you that challenge, that driving factor of, okay, yes, I may be one of the 10 best in the US or 10 best in the world, but I'm not the top five. I'm not top five yet. So let me be top five. Oh, okay. Be top five? I can be top three. I can be top three. Okay.
What's up, little guy? That's awesome. And you're a family man as well. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I resonate when you talk about, you feel like if you're not growing and learning that you become complacent or you're not moving. I often heard people say, especially in business, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? Because things are never just steady. You have to constantly improve it or eventually on the chart, that arrow will start going down. So I love that. So switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about, how you think. I know you've built something incredible. And I know success is more mindset than mechanics. So what principles or beliefs guide how you make decisions at this point?
For me, I am very busy with Cyber Kata, and also doing consulting, mentoring, working with NATO, and also with my family. But for me, I try to gauge the best decisions at the time based on what is going to free up time for me and my family, and also like what really matters. Is it going to be an investment in the future, or is it going to be something that is an immediate return on investment? Is it something that I'm going to see quick results right now? And is it something that I should be doing, or should I be making a decision to go ahead and set myself up for the future, for later on opportunities? So a perfect example would be um, should I take on a client that is a big corporation, big financial corporation, that wants a simulation, a cyber attack, adversary threat simulation right now, and they're willing to pay, I don't know, like $15,000. Or I know that NATO and potentially some federal sector agencies have a threat exercise that's coming up and they need somebody to help them work on it. And I may get a return on investment, like financially, as far as uh, maybe 7,000 or 7,500, like half of what I would make. And it would probably take more than a couple of months to work on that project. But is that going to bring in more clients? Am I going to have a steady client base because I do such a good job on this NATO or US federal exercise? That's cybersecurity. Yes, I'm taking half and I'm going to be doing it for more time, but is it going to work out in the future as far as our investment? You know. And
I love
sometimes
it.
I do that. And that's how I landed, NATO and some of the federal agency contracts because I saw, hey, this is going to take, 2 or 3 months in the future and that much work that I have to put into it. But I have a steady client and they're going to help me to utilize some of their clients and their contacts and they're going to give me, such high praises based on their impression and the good work that I did for the simulation that it's going to just continue snowballing to other clients as well.
Nah, that makes sense. I love that. So another question for you. What do you think separates people who create wealth versus those who chase it?
So creating wealth would be setting yourself up and creating opportunities for wealth and creating opportunities where your money can make money. And then you just build your wealth, whether it's knowledge, whether it's financial wealth, assets, etc. Chasing wealth, I feel like it's somebody that is always trying to chase that unicorn. They're always trying to be like, all right, I want to, I want my company to have a net value of 1.5 billion by next year. But if you're always trying to plan for that and chase that goal and you don't get there, then you're always going to be disappointed, and to me, you're not taking that step to do it in small increments. So I don't, for me personally, I don't really chase after, just the money. I'm not chasing after a financial. I'm just chasing after helping people. My wealth, my value is chasing after making sure that companies and people are secure and safe, and that they are they have that knowledge to go ahead and protect themselves and protect others and their assets, so they're not vulnerable to a cyber attack, so they're not victims of a huge large scale nation attack. And so for me, I'm not chasing after that $1.5 billion goal. I'm chasing after creating wealth as far as small increments, and also creating wealth in the sense of networking and having the people rich aspect, being wealthy in connections, having the opportunity to go ahead and, if I need somebody to help me on a project, I know that people are there. If I need resources, if I need another company to go ahead and piggyback with me on a project, they are willing to do it free of charge because I've helped them on a project and helped them when they were in need. So they're willing to help me when I'm in need to go ahead and take on a project. And they're okay with, like, yeah, you guys can have the whole return on investment. You guys can have the whole contract and whatever the payment is, or we could just take, 20%, 30%. It's not a big deal. And I've had CEOs and people I know tell me that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're okay with, you don't need to pay us. It's fine. You've helped us. You need your help. You need our help on this project. Yeah, it's fine."
That's awesome. That's awesome. You said something earlier, and it made me think about something that I once heard. I think it was Tony Robbins say, if you're in cybersecurity, you're not in the IT business. If you are a real estate investor, you're not in the real estate business. Regardless of what business you're in the people business, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's about people, providing value to people. And it's evident in what you just shared. So that's pretty cool. We talk a lot about how people deploy their capital, not just financially, like you mentioned earlier, but intellectually, relationally. I'm just curious on how that looks for you. When you think of capital, what does that word mean to you?
So when I hear that, I think of what is the, I guess, maximum return. Is the maximum value. For me, it's that value. But I mean, for you, what would that mean for you, as far as like how that resonates with your company and what you're doing?
Absolutely. When we talk about capital, we're talking about, when I think about that word in relation to what I'm doing from an investment standpoint, it's about money to help people, right? Um,
Mm,
and the way that we look at that word and leverage it is about, the more that we can accumulate and raise and borrow, the more value we can provide to individuals looking for shelter, whether that be helping individuals who can't get a home or helping individuals. So we look at it in a very traditional sense. And then at the same time, the cost of that capital. If that capital is very inexpensive with some very favorable terms, that's very valuable capital. Right? All money, it's interesting when you start, borrowing money like I have. money itself costs, right? We call that interest. And I never really thought about that until I got into this business. But, there's expensive money and there's very, very inexpensive money. So that's how I look at it. But thanks for asking me. No one's ever asked me that question before. So along those lines, how do you decide where to deploy your capital?
So for me, it is more in the return of an asset and investing in people. And it's investing in the people, whether it is, I think it would be the value of the asset and investing in the people for the resources and for the financial, and for just the return of putting it back into the people, go ahead and increase the value of the people, the company itself, um, for that future investment.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Are there any types of opportunities getting your attention these days?
Well, so it would be furthering education, studying. It would be investing in conferences, investing in exercises, furthering the skill sets and the knowledge of the people that work for Cyber Kata. Yeah, and just honestly putting the assets into, okay, well, yes, we did a successful year this year. So we're going to go ahead and give more people opportunities to travel. They want to travel to, let's say, Japan, Tokyo for a cybersecurity conference, and then spend some time with family out there. And, do you want to also invest in furthering your education and your skill sets and just furthering your knowledge of cybersecurity and goals, etc.
I
So,
love it. I love it. Giving back. Yeah. That's a great segue into how I like to end things when we talk about perspective, right? Because the way we deploy capital says a lot about who we are and what we value. So how would you define wealth today? And has that changed over time?
for me, wealth would be people and things that you can't, that are not financial. To me, being wealthy is, like I kind of hinted on earlier, of being people wealthy, um, networking with people, helping other people. Another form of wealth for me is having that knowledge and the opportunities to work with NATO, to be one of 200 people in the world selected to be on a cybersecurity exercise from NATO every year called Lock Shields. Being wealthy in things that are not attainable, things that you can't, it's not about how successful your company is financially to me or monetary. To me, it's more of, do we help people? Do we help stop a company from having a cyber attack and a breach and losing, $3.4 million? Did we help a company recover from being hacked 3 times in 1 year? Yes, we helped with post-breach recovery, and we've gotten companies that have been hacked and ransomware 3 times in the same year, and we helped them come out of the point where they're on the verge of bankruptcy and firing everybody in the company and just shutting down permanently. And we helped them recover from that point. And it's been 10 years and they haven't been hacked once. They've stopped probably about over 100,000 potential cyber attacks, and it's all been stopped at the firewall. It's been stopped at the network level. Nobody's gotten through. The phishing campaigns are doing successful. Nobody's gotten, phished emails. And so for me, that all ties into wealth. That is how successful I am and how successful my company is, as far as how we're helping people, how we're making an impact, how we can go ahead and have more knowledge and things that are not just monetary or financial gains. So, does that make sense?
It makes total sense. What I've learned is what you explained is value. right? At the end of the day.
Mm.
And that's what, when you really start to understand it, that's what money is. It's just a representation of value that you provided to someone. And I can tell by what you just shared about how you're measuring wealth and success speaks a lot to why you've had the success you've had. So that's all the time we have today. Thank you. Thank you again, Doug, for joining us for another episode of Deployed. Thank you, listeners, for listening in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Talk soon.
Thanks.
You've been watching the Deployed podcast, where we deploy insight, capital, and growth.